and welcome to another episode of Tesseract Talks, the place where we put the spotlight on tech trends, startups, and VCs. I'm your host, Marko, the founder and CEO of Tesseract Analytics, and it is my pleasure today to have Daniela Jovic as our guest, a CEO and founder at Orbytalix, brand communications manager at Impulsa Space, commercial advisor at Heimpulse, and project captain at CroCube. Daniela, welcome. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Very good.
Before we start and launch into space with the questions, I have to tell the audience that we know each other already for about 10 years when we both worked at Infobip. And shout out to Infobip, by the way. And since then, you went on pursuing your passion, which was always working with space. You've been very busy and involved in a number of different projects and companies regarding space industry. So why don't we start by you telling us a bit about your career background and all these like projects you worked on, and where did it all start, this passion for space?
So for sure, yes, it's been a long way since Infobip, that's for sure. And I'm happy to have met you and also seen you on your way towards finances, which was like completely everyone sort of went sideways, so to say, out of telecommunication business. But yes, during COVID times, I sort of had too much time on my hands and started exploring various different things. And I was traveling and obviously seeing all these space museums, and through volunteering, I got into space industry. My company, the company that I've joined was called Space Manic. For the audience, I'm originally from Slovakia. I live in Croatia for the past 14 years, and I got involved with this Slovak and Czech company that was making nanosatellites, and that sort of kickstarted my journey. I was in a customer-facing positions, doing sales, business development, but also communications. And throughout the years, built my sort of network and moved on to different freelance project. At this moment, I act as advisor, mentor for mostly communications, marketing, PR, and also business for all these various companies that you've mentioned. I am the leader of the project that built and assembled and launched the first Croatian satellite, CroCube. So Croatia finally joined the spacefaring nations, and this is definitely my biggest pride and joy. And at the moment, I'm still trying to help anyone and everyone accessing space sort of start their journey. I act as a mentor for instance, for ESABIC in Czech Republic, and I help some other organizations and startups to sort of find their way around, because new space landscape is sort of very tricky to navigate.
I can imagine. And I mean, I'm guessing historically space industry was mostly reserved for the governments. So when did the private sector get involved and all these space startups start to emerge? If you could give us maybe an overview of private versus government funding in the space industry globally.
Yeah, this is actually very correct. So it was just the governments and obviously the military and all these agencies such as NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, and JAXA and things like this. And I think the movement sort of started in the 1990s, companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin emerging, and also the rise of the miniaturization of the technology. So when this first CubeSat started to appear, and this started a revolution. So basically, private funding somehow entered the chat, so to say. And these things obviously led to also VC funding to be available. It's still early and it's still a learning process, because obviously space is, as other like deep tech industries, are very specific. There are risks that are much bigger than your usual tech companies, where you are sending something to space on a rocket, which is something that can, go sideways as well. It's a risky and very, very difficult industry, but what we are gaining is affecting our everyday lives. So what we are looking at the moment is the rise of constellations. So by constellations, I mean, for instance, Starlink or Kuiper, which is like the broadband providers. We have more and more standardization going on, which also helps the reliability. We still see the number of like these small satellites, these nanosatellites, 40% of them are dead on arrival, which is, very, very risky. This is one of the
Sorry
figures. Yeah.
sorry to interject. What does that on arrival mean? Like, if you can explain.
So that there is like, for instance, the communications fail and there is never like established a link in between the satellites, so you cannot operate. So it's basically just sitting there as a,
Wow. So
yeah.
even with all the technology and kind of analytics we have today,
Yes.
it's still 40%. Sounds high, but I guess,
Yeah.
I guess
It's
it's where
one of the
we're at.
figures that I've read. Obviously, depends. I'm pretty sure that Elon's numbers are something completely different. I'm talking about like some other types of projects. But yes, you are entering the domain of something completely different. There is radiation. There is like little to no atmosphere and whatnot. You are working in vacuum. So having some technology working in space is not like easy peasy. So there's a lot of risk, and this obviously affects a lot of the investments. And on the other hand, what we see is that space is sexy. Everyone wants to be involved in space. Everyone is making up startups, and the issue sometimes is that there is a solution, or like this startup solution of a problem that does not exist. So fitting the product on the market is very much hit and miss in some cases. So we see a lot of the funding go into companies that at the end somehow die out because they were not solving problems at hand. Maybe they were too early, or and this affects further investments. So because the investors, they burn themselves on something, they are not willing to take more risks and so on. So even I would say as a prediction, the VC funding is going to cool down a little bit, but it's still there. We have fortunately the ability to get some funding from the EU, from ESA here in Europe, or from other institutional bodies supporting projects all over the world. So looking sort of into the future, it's mostly like a combination of maybe like a little bit of private funding, a little bit of institutional funding, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. I have so many questions. Like,
Yeah.
like as you're talking about this, oh my God, like, this could easily be like 2 hours to talk. But like one thing that popped to my mind is like how strictly regulated is the space industry? So let's say, you start from Croatia, you want to do some business with space. Who do you ask? Do you ask like Croatian Space Agency, European space, or is it like some global space agency? Like, how is that? Is there like compliance process?
This is fantastic question. So regulation is one of the trends that we will be looking at in the future, because at this moment we are just starting, so to say. And if you want to talk about, for instance, Croatia, you're not necessarily asking an institution in Croatia, you're like, I want to do space, but there are certain regulations when you do stuff. So for instance, when you have a satellite, it communicates on certain radio frequencies. So you have to start from the bottom down, from national regulatory body, you go to the International Telecommunication Union and so on. And when you have a body in space, like a satellite or some probe or something, then you need to tell the UN. The thing is that, yeah.
Did you say UN?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there is not like telling Elon or someone or something. There is obviously regulations when you're sending stuff to space on specific rockets, where each rocket launcher has their own, let's say, a guidebook or some rules that you have to adhere to. There is obviously a lot of rules, and we are talking about 0.1 millimeter standards, like really, really strict things. But to be honest, looking at the bigger picture, everything is sort of non-binding. So the regulation is very, very old. We are looking at some UN conventions from the 60s, from the 70s, and so on, like really, really back in the day. And the only problem is like nothing that's been sort of adopted is binding. So if, let's say, Russia wants to blow their satellite up, there's no enforcement of something going on, like a consequence for this action. Same we see now with, for instance, the Artemis Accords, which is legislation that we're doing towards peaceful usage of the moon and resources in outer space. This again, everyone is signing because it's very easy to sign because there's no enforcement of this. Everything is non-binding. There is zero debris charter and similar documents. The only thing that is more or less binding right now are national space laws. So we are working, but it's very, very slow process, obviously, because Europe is million different nations. We are working towards a common EU law, but it's going to be a while for sure.
Wow. I mean, fascinating. And I mean, you've already touched upon a bit, but can you give us your maybe predictions? What is first the current trend, and then like where do you see private space industries heading in the next couple of decades?
Yes, for sure. So we are definitely looking at, and I think this is very, very like current topic and topic even of this year and very much this year and probably some upcoming years. We are looking at dual use. This might be a term that not everyone is familiar with, but these are projects that where commercial technology is used for defense or military purposes. So we are looking at a lot of these projects because sovereignty and national interests started to be very, very important, be it either Europe or just sort of having this independence off of the big forces in the world. So dual use for sure. We will be looking at utilizing lunar resources and the resources in outer space that might be slightly more in the future, but this is what we are looking at. This is what we are preparing for. When I'm talking about this means the emerging of the space economy, like a proper space infrastructure, because once you come to the moon, you will need the same infrastructure that you have here on Earth. So communication, meteorological satellites, for instance, because on the moon you don't have the atmosphere to shield you, right? So it's even more important. We will be looking at orbit economy as well, which is refueling in the space. We will be in the need of repairing stuff in space and so on. So in orbit assembly and things like this will be very, very important. And we will see in the upcoming years definitely the more and more emerging space nations. So countries like Croatia that just have joined with one CubeSat mission, this will rise, and over time it will become more and more standard, and more countries will be part of this bigger picture. And the probably most interesting point of view is how this will be done in terms of like finances. So what we will be looking at will be government funds and private delivery. So what we see in the example of SpaceX, a private company delivering projects for NASA, or Rocket Lab delivering satellites to space for NASA. So this is the combo that we will be looking at in the future.
Okay. We'll be keeping our eye on it. And I mean, just maybe a straight up question. How far are we from mining the asteroids and stuff like that?
I would say that we have a long way to go to everything. I'd say at this moment, the geopolitical situation is sort of shaken. So we will first need to stabilize everything, work together nicely, play together nicely. And when it maybe comes to this, I might maybe mention one of the recent like bigger investments in the space industry, which was the company Space Forge. They just raised around 30 million, and they are going to be doing some in-orbit manufacturing like soldering and stuff. So that's really, really cool. And these are the things that will be like stepping stones towards maybe some more ambitious projects. So I'll say like, let's be ready. Let's do some incremental steps towards it, but I'm not going to say it's going to happen tomorrow.
Okay. Maybe the quantum computing and AI will help us come there faster. Definitely very exciting times ahead of us. So tell us more about your current company, Orbytalix. What do you exactly do and who do you help?
Yes, so the space industry is very, very specific, and me as a non-engineer, I somehow found a hole in the market apparently, because all of these space companies, they have brilliant engineers aboard. Everyone is like this proper genius brain coming up with innovative technology that we've never seen before, and really, really interesting applications. But when it comes to communicating, this is where the problem starts, because, engineers, they have their own sort of language. And I actually, with my background as a translator, I still act as a translator, but I call it that I'm a translator in between the language of the engineers and the general public. So
Love it.
yes, so I'm basically trying to help these companies find their sort of way to speak to potential customers, to position their product on the market. I have really nice projects on my hands. For instance, Heimpol is a emerging German rocket launcher. This is very important because currently we are very much relying on SpaceX. We need the independence in Europe, so they are very nice green hybrid rocket. I really like the technology, and I'm happy to support them. And then I'm working with this Italian company in Fulsa that is helping with the space logistics, because once you have this satellite sitting in your laboratory, you still need to get it somehow to the rocket and to integrate it, to maybe refuel it and stuff. So this was again something that to me was very exciting. And there is many other things. I am helping various conferences find their own audience. So I'm on organizing committees or steering committees of some conferences, and then trying to bring back value for the audience. So that's kind of me trying to help the space industry with the bit that I'm comfortable at.
Nice. And of course, we have to mention our mutual friend Marko Matjasevic, and how I'm proud that I connected two of you. For the
Yes.
audience, we have a mutual friend who is manufacturing beautiful, like a tailor-made books, and he had an idea. He wanted his book to go to space for
Yeah.
other branding and marketing purposes. But maybe you could, Daniela,
Yes.
briefly explain what was this project about?
This was very beautiful because you've reached out to me that you have someone that wants to do something with space, and I'm the only space person, and this somehow happened. So we were looking at a Croatian fine press publisher called Amarantin Books, and this was a very exciting project because this publishing house, they were making a new edition of 2001 Space Odyssey. And there, for the people who are familiar with it, either the book or the movie, they're black monoliths brought to Earth and to some other places from an alien world or something. And they wanted to take these small monoliths, like miniaturized versions, send them to space, and then incorporate them in the book. We've made this happen with the help of the company Blue Origin, and as the new astronaut Katy Perry, this part of the books also went to space. And this was another, let's say, very small but very significant Croatian space mission. So I'm very proud that we made this happen, and we have this small space thing as well happening in Croatia. Not necessarily as big as a satellite, but very exciting nonetheless.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Daniela, for coming to the show and sharing your space story and these valuable insights. That was all for today, and I'm sure we'll catch up in the near future, either here in London or when I come over to Croatia.
It will be my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.